Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the AggieCentral podcast. Once again, I thank you for joining me. I got two more segments in this matchup of Titans in the Miami Hurricanes and Ohio State Buckeyes. Thanks for letting this Aggie talk to you about some football and just talk ball. I told you that you would not become a cult member, right? I told you it would not rub off on you. It has not. So you're welcome. But tonight is an extremely fun episode. I love to do this for my own team on the regular, which is we're gonna pit position group against position group and battle them out, right? So we can do that with some groups, not with others. Let me give you an example. We're gonna look at the quarterback position tonight, and we're gonna say, okay, which quarterback position is better? Which would you take, right? Now, you can't exactly do that with the wide receiver groups. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's go wide receivers against the secondary, right? And see who would we take. I'm going to give you all my opinions, show you everything I've got. I'm going to dig as deep as I possibly can to give you a fair and unbiased take. Anything I hope that you've gotten out of this entire thing is that I'm going to try and give it to you fair and as unbiased as I possibly can. I got really no dog in this hunt. If Miami wins, it makes my team look a little bit better, but you know what? Hey, we're kind of far removed from that at this point. What I'll say before I jump into this, though, and to toss all that other stuff to the side, is that when you study these teams like this and you get into it, you can't help but have just a bunch of respect for both of them. I mean, these two teams are amazing. They truly, truly are. They're amazing. When you look at each one of these position groups and what they've done, the flaws that they have and how they've had to overcome that, it's truly something to behold. So I have just really enjoyed this time. With that said, let's jump into the first one right now. Let's get into the quarterback situation, y'all. So it's Beck versus Saying. Check out the graphic in the window. Okay, so you got Beck. He's doing 244 yards per game passing to Saying's 255. He's got 26 TDs, 31 on the other side, 10 INTs for Beck, 6 for Saying. Okay, what jumps off the screen for you here, right? A fair amount of this does, right? A fair amount of this you would automatically jump over to Saying and say, yep, definitely gonna take that, and that's why the check marks are where they are. He's got 300 or just over 3,300 yards total passing to Beck's 3,175. Completion percentage for both of them is way up there, comparatively speaking, but Sands is just an amazing elite number. 78.4% of his throws are being completed, and he's getting 9.3 yards per catch. So, based off the numbers, you can't help but give the check to Saying on this one. Now, I'm not done with the position group battle. Like, I'm not just going to throw some numbers up here. There's some contextualizing that needs to take place here. Absolutely some contextualizing. So let me tell you just a little bit more about these as you kind of check out those numbers just a little bit more, right? So, as it says, Saying he's the 20th ranked quarterback in the NCAA at the moment. Um, let's talk about the last three opponents: Rutgers, Michigan, Indiana. Saying threw for 216 yards that he averaged in all of those games. He had averaged 2 TDs per game in these last three matchups, 1 INT each versus Michigan and Indiana. Nothing against Rutgers. He was free and clear there. 8.7 yard average per attempt, respectively, all through these. He did drop down to 71.2% completion percentage against all three. And another piece of food for thought, okay? Um, because this is where some contextualizing comes into play. What was he playing against? What was Saying up against? He was up against the 74th best passing D in Rutgers, 52nd versus Michigan, and the 18th versus Indiana. So gotten progressively better there as he went along. Quick note, Rutgers, he's got the is 112th in the nation for opponent completion percentage. Michigan's 96th, Indiana's 65th. That kind of averages out to 91st if you were to kind of group those together. So does that help you kind of think about it a little bit differently? Okay. I kind of think so. Let me give you some more numbers on Beck that aren't just going to be up there on your screen, easy to grab. Last three opponents, he's threw for 173 yards per game, 2.3 TDs per game. Miami fans, this was interesting. I looked at this, and I was checking out how many TDs he threw the last, 3 games. And I think it was NC State, no, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, and then us, A&M. And it said, I think he threw 4 against Virginia Tech, 3 TDs versus Pittsburgh, and then 1 against A&M. And I was like, 1? The score was 10-3. There was no passing TD in this thing. And I checked multiple sites on this. ESPN even lists him as having 1 passing TD. I was like, this was a handoff to Malachi Toney. Somebody catch me on this one. I don't know. I feel like I'm in Severance or something. I'm not sure. But anyways, so I adjusted the number myself. I was like, that's not a passing TD, but maybe for some reason that's why they counted it. But 2.3 TDs per game. Now, I mentioned the INTs. Saying's thrown 2 INTs, 1 in each game, last 2 outings. Beck has 1 INT in his last 5 outings, even though he has the 10 INTs listed on the board. So Beck has drastically cleaned up his game the last 5 games. Now, he might not be lighting it up in yards per game and TDs, but he's at least managing the game well, right? He's managing the game well. He is, however, getting 8.1 yards per catch, and it's worth noting he did only get 5.2 yards per catch versus A&M. Completion percentage there dropped to 70 versus A&M, but he's averaging 77.9% over the last 3 games. And he faced A&M's number 16th ranked passing defense, Pittsburgh's 99th, and Virginia Tech's 78th. So that averages out to 64 overall. So Saying was matched up against an average of 91. Beck's been up against an average of 64. Does that change your mind about some of these numbers, right? So you got Saying with 31 TDs to Beck's 26, and I didn't give you every single opponent like that, but trust me whenever I tell you, I went through all those, and it does kind of play out like that throughout the entire year. Saying has statistically slightly, I don't say easier competition, but slightly lower ranked, let's put it that way, passing defenses. Okay, so Saying's pulling 9.3 yards per attempt. Beck's only doing 8.5. Surely that's got to have something to do with some of the competition. Now, I'm not saying that Ohio State's not played good competition. Please don't hear me saying that. And that's why I'm going to come with so many numbers, because tonight's a heavy opinion night. So if I'm going to take one of these quarterbacks, contextualizing these and going off the numbers, kind of a big deal. But going up against stiffer competition for Beck's got to play into this somehow, some way, right? Last 3, let me review this one more time. Last 3 games, Beck has averaged 173 yards per game. Saying has averaged 216 yards per game. Just thinking about the competition that they're up against, that to me really narrows the gap quite a bit, don't you think? I mean, maybe take that 216 and at least drop it to 200. Maybe bump up Beck's slightly because he's been playing slightly more difficult competition, especially in the last 3 games. So maybe it equalizes. So how do you make a decision on this? Who would you take? Would you take Saying or would you take Beck? And why would you do that? What I'm going to try and not do here, which is a big want, is a huge want, is to run this over and say, well, what about the wide receiver group and who they're throwing to? I only try and do that as if I just cannot make a decision. I say, well, yeah, but here's some other information to take into account, okay? And keep in mind this, because other parts of the game do affect what happens to these guys. Okay, point in case, because it is kind of close. If you take those numbers to account and you contextualize them, it does get pretty close with these guys. I think both of them have pretty good accuracy, throw pretty well on the run. Neither one of them are big-time rushers, and both have pretty good feet work. So I like that. I like that out of both of these guys. I really don't have a hugely bad thing to say about them. couple ill decisions probably by Saying in the last two games versus Beck's not. That's going to give me just a slight leg up because INTs can affect the game. Now, what kind of game do you think this might be? I, it's hard for me to say that versus going off just the first position group because there's a lot more to go here to kind of shape that conversation, especially when you get to wide receivers. When you get to wide receivers, you could think this could go up pretty quick, perhaps, depending on how that game plays out. If it's close, a turnover plays a huge role. Turnovers play a huge role. Who's a little bit more turnover prone at this point? I would definitely say Saying's a little bit more turnover prone. That's a big part of the game. I mean, without the contextualization, we got like 30 yards difference of production in the last 3 games from both these guys. 216 for Saying, 176 for Beck, right? But that's pretty close. That's still pretty close, even without contextualizing. If you contextualize it, it shrinks. The INT possibility is something that weighs on me quite a bit. Okay, so how does that happen? Well, how about Saying? Let's look at some of the things that do affect the quarterback position to a degree, and that's sacks and pressures. Okay, so Saying opposition sacks, they've gone up against Rutgers, 135th. Indiana was 6th. Michigan was 49th. Okay, when you go up against Miami, I don't really want to bring Miami into this a whole lot, but it's worth saying it's pretty close. Miami's going to bring the 40th best passing D, and they're going to bring the 4th best sacking attack to you. Okay, so Rutgers 135. They did go up against a good team in Indiana in passing D and passing sacks. What was Beck going up against? Okay, Beck was going up against the opposition. A&M is 2nd in sacks, Pitt's 32, and Virginia Tech is 108. Slightly better resume when it comes to looking at what the pressure and sack rate is looking like. Beck's had a slightly more difficult road in front of him when it comes to that. And it's going to get more difficult because Ohio State is number 1 in pass D and 25th in sacks. Okay, so that is going to get more difficult. Am I going to make this pick based off of who they're playing in the upcoming game? No, because I'm using the body of work. It's about production. What have you produced for me so far? So that's another big piece that I do to make these decisions. You see all the checks on the board, but right now, I am going to give just the slightest edge to Beck, just the slightest edge. One thing that gives me pause on that in particular, but I said I'm not going to bring this kind of thing in there, is that I know that Day is going to be calling plays in this particular game. And that could give Saying an even more edge than he has had statistically. Okay, he's been better total percentage wise, although I've showed you how that's dropped and some other things versus the last few games. But Day could really affect this game. I am going with Beck in this particular category, but how Day calls this game, I think, going to be a pretty big deal. We got wide receivers to look at the end, so I'll bring those in at the end. I'll do what I promised and say I'm not bringing that piece into this just yet, even though it's so difficult. Running backs. Here's the rushing attack, okay? So it's not so much about running backs. There's not a lot of depth that I usually consider when looking at rushing attacks to make a pick on this. And this game actually does a really good job of kind of pointing out why I think it's a good idea not to look down the card terribly much. Although I like the guys down the card. I like Chamar Brown that Miami has, and I especially like Pringle. I was shocked almost as much as Miami fans were. I can't say I was as much because they know their team so much better than I do. That Pringle just did not get any work. He only had 1 carry versus A&M is what I saw. But he had 41 carries previously in the previous 3 games and 247 yards for Pringle. Ohio State fans, this is a freshman running back. You're familiar with freshman running backs. You got Bo Jackson. I think it's Lamar Jackson, actually, right? It's not actually any kid. any kin to Debo Jackson. But Pringle is a very dynamic running back from Miami. I certainly don't think that Mario Cristobal was just holding him back, for some sort of like we're gonna release the Kraken kind of situation. No way, no way. Guys, too good. They want to win too much. They're not gonna hold things back like that. The playbook's fully open. Um, Fletcher's the guy. Fletcher's the guy from Miami. He was the guy there. I can't imagine he's not going to be the guy um, in the Cotton Bowl. Similar situation for OSU. Bo Jackson's basically been the guy. Peoples has been there. Donaldson's there. Donaldson will definitely get some carries. The guy's got 2 catches. He had 2 catches versus Indiana. No carries that game, but he had 14 carries versus Michigan. He had 44 yards. A healthy 3.1 yard average, but probably, I would say, more of a hard fought 3.1 yard average. He's got 10 TDs on the year for somebody who doesn't get a whole lot of carries. That's a lot. That's a lot. So kind of shaping up what kind of work this guy does. Okay. And that's for Miami, that's kind of the bigger deal is on this one for that particular person, give you an idea of what they're bringing to the table. He's a 6'2", 32-pound bruiser, and he can catch. He's got 10 receptions for 65 yards and added a TD. He's a big guy. Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson and Mark Fletcher, those are the guys that are going to carry the day for this particular ranking, okay? Hurricane rushing attack, as you see on the board, 151 yards per game, 163 for the Buckeyes. 23 TDs, 24 for the Buckeyes. Really close. The check marks just to kind of draw your attention to where the edge is there. For the Hurricanes, it's been 2 turnovers to the Buckeyes 3. Not a big thing there. Buckeyes hold a slight edge in yards per carry, and total somewhat significant, but still very close, all things considered. Especially if you consider the Buckeyes played an extra game, right? Buckeyes played an extra game, but I'll keep everything in almost yards per game or yards per carry. So the total makes a whole lot of sense. The total will be a lot closer without that game, right? But worth noting, because whereas Buckeyes played 1 extra regular season game, Hurricanes have already played 1 extra playoff game. So this should be pretty even. Okay, so just wanted to point all those little pieces out there. Let's get back to the main courses here. Bo Jackson, he's the 28th ranked back in the nation. He's got 168 carries on the year. He's over 1,000 yards rushing, 1,035. 6.2 yards per carry, 5 TDs this year, and he can do something 64. 64 is his long ball. He's got another 200 yards receiving, 10.5 yards per catch, 1 more TD. No fumbles for this guy. He's about 6'2", 217. Okay, that's Bo Jackson. A little bit more of a shifty back, I would say. Not quite the I would say Fletcher's a bit more of a bruiser, a bit more of a workhorse. But kind of no sliding, just to give a slight idea about the two. Fletcher, he's the 47th ranked back. He's got 158 carries, just 10 less than Bo Jackson. 857 yards on the year for him, 5.4 yards per carry. His long is 56. He's got 10 TDs. 6'2", 225-pound junior. He's got no fumbles lost. 62 yards receiving and 8.9 yard average. So good and better and better and good. No, there's nothing bad about either one of these guys, in my opinion. I can't see it. I can't find it. Both of them are very durable. You can hand it off to them any down. Both can block. Both can catch. Bo Jackson's a little bit more productive from the catching standpoint than Fletcher is. Miami tends to use their tight end out of the backfield or to leak them out more so than I would say Ohio State does. But Fletcher got 10 TDs on the year, and that's a lot of production. That's a lot of production. Bo Jackson, a lot more yards. He's getting them up and down the field, but 5 TDs. Of course, this is not just about one person. And so if I'm going to point that out, I got to bring Donaldson back into the conversation because he is carrying the day with 10 TDs. Okay. Like, for instance, Shamar Brown, think he's just got the one TD on the year. I'll have to check back on my notes. Somebody make sure I'm right on that. I'm not sure that he's adding a whole lot in this situation. Pringle, let's see if my notes give me anything here. I'm sure he's got a few TDs. I'll have to go back and look at that as well. I'm pretty impressed with what Ohio State's running backs are bringing to the table when it comes to TDs. Okay. One thing I want to add again is just contextualizing this. What have you been up against? Okay. What have you been up against? Ohio State, last three, they went against number 3 Indiana. That's number 3 rushing Indiana, number 14 Michigan, and 130th Rutgers. So 2 top 20 rushing defenses and one dang near dead last. Okay. Miami. Who have you been up against? Pitt, number 8 rushing D. Virginia Tech, 75th, and then A&M was 41st. So Miami hasn't played anybody as bad as Rutgers in this category, but hasn't quite played the same average quality up there. But Pittsburgh, pretty good rush D, I mean, wow, it's almost like splitting hairs on these guys, y'all. I'm really struggling on this. You might even on this one want to like get into the offensive lines and say the offensive line does this and does this and does this and makes things happen and makes things work, and that's it is 100% true. But who would you take based off of this? They're playing relatively similar competition, some more variation with Ohio State's. Miami's is a little bit more stable. Ohio State's going to be playing the 7th ranked rush D in Miami. They're only allowing 87 yards per game. Miami's going to play the 5th best rush D. So, I mean, we just got neck and neck guys here as who they're going to go up against as well. Man, like, I can't tell you how impressed I've been through looking through all these numbers for each one of these teams. Just crazy. It is absolutely just crazy. If I'm going to have to go with one right here, y'all, I think I'm going to have to lean Ohio State on this one. As much as I like Fletcher and what he's been able to do, Ohio State seems to have just a little bit more variety. Pringle not playing really in that last game, just kind of, I don't know, maybe it was just a weird day, but the wind was bad. You would have thought it would have been a real heavy run day as well. I mean, it kind of was, but Pringle just didn't get in there. And maybe Fletcher's just that much of a badass. I mean, whatever. A little bit more variation. If Jackson goes down, Donaldson seems to be a solid piece to have in for backup. I know Pringle is. I absolutely know Pringle is. We just didn't see him. I don't know. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give the nod to Ohio State for the running back position. Now, let's swing on over to passing offense and passing defense. So I'm doing this as a combo for this one. So I've got 2 graphics up there for you to watch. So you got the Hurricanes passing defense, you got the Buckeyes passing defense, and you can kind of look at these diagonally to kind of see what you're kind of matched up against, right? So I kind of want to play this Miami wide receivers versus Ohio State secondary. It's hard to put those numbers directly for you, so I wanted to put them up here all together at the same time so that you can get a good feel for what everybody's up against, right? So Hurricanes passing defense. They are allowing 194 yards per game. Buckeyes passing defense, 129 yards per game allowed, okay? Hurricanes have given up 11 TDs. Buckeyes only given up 6. Receptions per game allowed, 19.3 for the Hurricanes, 14.5 for the Buckeyes. Total yards allowed, 25-28 for the Hurricanes, 16.78. That's probably the thing that jumps out the most on the page, right? That difference in total yards allowed. Yards per catch, 10.1 for Hurricanes and 8.8 for the Buckeyes. That means that the Hurricanes are giving up an elite number. Um, that's a lot. 10.1 is a lot. 8.8 better, obviously. I mean, it goes without saying. But you know what happens when we get up here in these 9 and 10 yards per catch range? You're talking about getting first downs all in one catch as an average. And that becomes highly problematic at times. How about from the offensive side of things? So Hurricanes, 262 yards per game to the Buckeyes, 266, very even there. 28 TDs to 32, pretty even. Slight edge to Ohio State there. Receptions per game, Hurricanes 22.6 and Ohio State 22.4. So the reason why I brought those in there was just to kind of show you about what the offense was about. They're in this sense they're very even on how much they're going to pass versus how much they're going to run. In the defensive category, though, you can see the opponents are actually leaning quite a bit on the pass versus the Hurricanes, but not so much against Ohio State. They're definitely having to resort to the run on that particular defense, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, they're ranked first, right? You see them ranked first. So back to the offense. Both doing a really salty yards per catch, 11.6 for the Hurricanes, 11.9 for the Buckeyes. Total 34-13, 34-68. Really, really evenly ranked offenses here. And, that kind of makes a lot of sense because we looked at the Saying versus Beck breakdown. It was very, very close. It was very, very even. And, here's what we got to do. The wide receiving cores are made up of 3 to 4 guys typically, a tight end, 3 wide receivers, even a running back. So I'm going to bring all that back into play. Okay. OSU wide receivers. They got 2 wide receivers in the top 15 nationally. So let's contextualize all this. 2 wide receivers in the top 15 nationally for Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. All right. Smith, 80 catches, over 1,000 yards, receiving 13.5-yard average, 11 TDs for that man, just over 90 yards per game. He's got an 87-yard long TD. Or actually, it's just reception. I'm not sure if he had a TD on that one, but you go so far, you probably got the TD on that one. Carnell Tate, 48 receptions, 838 yards. Wow, that's a lot of yards on almost not quite half the catches, just over that. 17.5-yard average, 9 TDs for him that he added. He's also got a 57-yard long catch, and he's doing about 83 yards per game. Overall, this passing game for Ohio State's, like I said, doing 3,400 plus yards. That's 11.9 average again, and 32 TDs. So it's a salty passing attack. They've got Brandon Ennis that kind of rounds out the group, and Max Clare does a nice job getting some very important catches and very important yards. Okay, switch that. Let's talk about Miami. Okay, Miami, Malachi Tony. Malachi Tony is somebody that's just under 1,000 yards. So they are the 32nd overall, right? And they've got their my bad, real quick, y'all. Yeah, lost my place there for just a second. I want to emphasize Malachi Tony. He's 31st in the top 100, okay? And he is their only receiver in the top 100. He's got 89 receptions, 992 yards, 11.1 average, and 8 TDs. So his long is 61 yards. They work him a little bit more off the line of scrimmage, inside of 10 yards. It's not down the field so much. He has the speed, he has the movement, but they rely more so, I would say, on Keelan Marion, CJ Daniels, some bigger guys to get their downfield catches. Keelan Marion is a 44 reception yard guy, adds a very key 590 yards this year, 13.4 average, got a TD, got a 61-yard long reception as well. CJ Daniels, big catch in Notre Dame versus Notre Dame. 37 catches, 420 yards, 7 additional TDs, 11.4. You see the production. Carry carry out for Miami down the way. Okay, so um, for this, let's think about the secondary that we're going to be going up against. Okay, because that's part of how this is going to work out. You've got these wide receiving cores, and both of them are very good. How are they going to match up against the secondaries that they're going up against, right? So those are the two wide receiving cores. Let's talk about the Miami secondary first, okay? They're 32nd overall. They're allowing 194 yards per game, as I mentioned. They've got 14 INTs. They've allowed 11 TDs. They're allowing 6 yards per catch, 2,500 yards so far, and 59.8 completion percentages for the opposing quarterbacks. Okay. Bryce Fitzgerald and Jacoby Thomas, two guys I really like back there. They've combined for 10 INTs and 1 TD. So we've got a defensive TD coming from these guys, but 10 INTs. Keontae Scott, he's forced another 2 fumbles. He got added an INT of his own, and he's also got 1 touchdown. So they're 25th in passes defended. They're doing 5 per game. They're 48 passes broken up. That's a pretty good group. It really is. It's a pretty good group. Those guys are not going to get on a lot of highlight reels. They're going to play very sound ball between Lucas and Brown on the other side. But I haven't talked about those guys much this year between the safeties and everything else that they bring to the table. They're good tacklers as well. What more to say? I mean, this is going to be a production conversation. It really is. Let's talk about the OSU secondary now. They are ranked first. They are. They're giving up only 129 yards per game. 24 average attempts per game. They have 8 INTs themselves, 6 TDs that they're allowing, 5.3 yards per catch, only allowing 1,600 yards in the total on the year. Opposing quarterbacks, 59.8 completion percentage as well. Matthews and Igbinosun have 6 INTs for the two of them. All right. Downs, no TDs that I've seen. I think he might have had 1 interception, but again, I was a little vague on that one. But he is a guy that really just bookends this secondary. Caleb Downs is a monster. So when it comes to needing to be able to do the job against Fletcher and take the right angles to come up and make a tackle, this is wow. Caleb Downs is going to play a big role in these lack of big plays. I mean, I know I've already shouted out Styles, and I think the other guy, Igmanosin, yes. Both of them tackle well. Caleb Downs is phenomenal. He's phenomenal throughout this entire thing. His season is, from what I can tell, even though the stats aren't quite there, it's a lackluster position and lackluster job that he's getting, but I don't think it's going to go unnoticed by NFL scouts. I really don't. There's a lot of NFL talent on both sides of this game. I can't say I'm extremely excited to watch all of it. Based off of this, if you were going to pit one of these wide receiving cores against the other one's defensive secondary and vice versa, which one would you take? Which one would you take? I just am blown away by the Buckeyes stats on this one. So I have got to go Ohio State for this one. You're going to see some special things happen from Miami. They're going to play really solid on the back end. They're going to have a big task going up against Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. There's a big possibility that they could offer. So it's combination factor, y'all, right? So don't just think I'm taking the secondary only. I'm taking the combination of how it's going to work out with the wide receivers for Ohio State versus the Miami secondary and vice versa. Okay. Between all of this, I'm saying Ohio State for me has the advantage. And I think a lot of that advantage actually comes out in the idea that Ohio State has so much downfield threat. Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith offer huge are huge threats down the field. Um, that's why I pointed out the long uh, plays that each one of them had. They they can go down the field, play big, come down with huge catches. And it's not to say Daniels can't. I've seen him do it. It just looks like it's likely to be more consistent from Ohio State. Okay. I've got some thoughts on game plan for Miami since Ohio State won two of the categories, right? Running back, and then the dynamic matchup with the wide receivers in secondary. But with Miami winning the quarterback position, this is part one. Okay. So this is part one. And so Ohio State's got a leg up. Before I end this, though, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you that when it came to the offensive position group matchup and battle that I did between A&M and Miami, I don't think I took anything from Miami. I well, I definitely didn't take quarterback, and I definitely didn't take wide receiver. But it ended up not mattering. I think I was really close on the running back situation. I'm pretty sure I gave that to Miami because Fletcher is a workhorse, and we didn't know if we were going to have Moss back or not. But I went ahead. I'm almost positive and went with Miami, and that was absolutely the right take. Even though I thought A&M might have the better wide receiver room. I mean, running back room. As far as offensive line, whenever that came, I'll tell you that um, I took Miami there as well. And I think the combination of that and the running back situation made a big deal. So this is going to be a big matchup tomorrow because I'm going to do the same thing with your offensive lines and your defensive lines and kind of dynamically look at those. And then we'll do um, linebackers as well. Okay. And finish up with special teams. And I'll give you my final predictions. So that's coming tomorrow. That is the final saga in this. If I missed something, tell me what I missed. Again, I've learned so much about both of your teams, Ohio State, mostly about yours in the last 2 weeks, and mad respect for you all. You've got a fantastic team, as you can see. Um, if you guys win, I'd love to keep covering you. Absolutely love that, and watch what you do so I can learn, so I can give my fans that are listening, I should say A&M fans, not mine, A&M fans that I'm talking to about our football better takes. And you guys have helped me with that the entire way. So I'm loving it. Um, we'll do part two either tomorrow or early the next morning to get that out in time for this matchup. That'll come along with my prediction. And yeah, it's been great. We'll talk to you when we see you on that next one, y'all. Peace out.